Welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Today we're going to be talking all about copywriting and writing copy that converts. I've got an amazing guest. Her name is Kayla Dean, and she is a copywriter and brand messaging strategist for wedding pros and online service providers. So welcome, Kayla. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Hi, yes, I'm so excited to be here. So I am a website copywriter, sales copywriter, and brand messaging strategist. So I do work with a lot of wedding pros and online service providers and other creatives, and I have my bachelor's and master's degree in English literature. So I knew I wanted to write, and I went through school and I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And it's so funny because people always tell English majors like, oh, are you going to be a teacher, or are you just going to like be a starving artist? And I was like, I don't want to do that. I really if I'm going to go and get my English degree, I really wanted to use it for writing because that was something I really, really wanted to do. And, I was trying to figure out, what types of writing I was interested in. I did a lot of things through school, a lot of interning and working at different places, literary magazines, city weeklies, just kind of freelancing and writing, articles mostly. And I did a very journalism heavy internship. And I was like, okay, what do I want to do after, grad school? And I was kind of interested in the idea of running my own business, but at the time it was really more just oh, I want to freelance, or I want to write from home, or I want to make my income from writing. And I wasn't totally sure what that would look like. And then at the time, I was pitching a lot of articles, and I was doing more blog and article writing. And then I discovered what copywriting was. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. So I started, kind of getting into that and getting my initial clients years and years and years ago. Once upon a time, I was on Fiverr Pro. And that was my first, I got my first copywriting project through there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could make money writing copy for businesses. And that was just such a unique concept for me. I had just never thought of it before. And then I started branching out into the creative community, and at that time, Facebook communities. I mean, I'm still in some entrepreneur groups, but I feel at that time, a lot of people were really getting clients that way. And that was a way that I got a lot of my first clients, was through Facebook groups, posting, my website at the time. And it's so funny. I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. People actually trusted me, because I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel I am 100 times better at my job now. I've learned so much. And I always say, I feel so I've been in business for 6 years. I feel it's dog years. You know what I mean? 1 year working at your business is I don't know, more than it would be just at a regular job, just because all the things that we have to do as entrepreneurs, there's just so much that we have to do, and so much we have to think of, and all the decision making. I didn't really go into this with a business background either. I know you have an MBA, which I think is such a great asset to have. I didn't go into this with a business background, so I had to learn all of that as I went, and I didn't have a corporate background either. So there were a lot of things I had to learn the hard way, and really build up over time. And plus, clients later, I have really invested in myself and my craft, and just learned so much about writing for businesses, that if you look at the before and after, it's just such a big 180 shift,
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. And I think it's so cool how I feel so many people end up in jobs that they didn't even know existed when they went to school. And so I love that you're still, though, doing what you love, which is writing, and that's what you went to school for. And I feel the same way. When I was looking at my major, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I just kind of chose my major based off of the classes that I liked. And I think it kind of guides you, right? If you're stepping into what you're passionate about, I think there's a way to make a job out of it. And I think it's so fun when people find that. And so I just love that for you, and that you were able to find a career that you really love and build a business around that, which is amazing. I think there's a lot of people listening who maybe get overwhelmed with when it comes to copywriting, and some people might not even know what that is. So do you mind talking a little bit about what is website copywriting, and why is that important for people to focus on when it comes to their business?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I will definitely talk more about website copywriting. So basically, in its most like just basic form, it's like the words on your website. But it's funny, I actually have a line on my website somewhere that I say it's the words on your website, but truthfully, it's so much more than that because it is. There's so much that goes into it. And even like when I was at the beginning of this journey, like I didn't realize how much it goes into it. And the work I do now on copy is like, it's so intense. Like I have some of my clients, when I work with them, I will literally go and like interview their customers to understand the insights of what are their customers saying and thinking and doing, and how did they find them, and what did they love about the process. And so, I do really intensive like research to figure out what are people saying, like what is the market like, but then also having conversations with the business owner, really understanding like what their vision is and how they want their business to be conveyed on their website, but not just on their website. Also, it's the message that your brand has. Like, what are you saying as a business? Because that's going to affect your websites. It's kind of your home base online, especially, for us like online service providers. But, even if you have, brick and mortar, or if you're working, locally in person, like with clients, like that website is such a huge first impression. So when we focus on the words there, we're really going, what is that bigger picture message? What do we say? How can we stand out? How can we make sure like the people that are landing here are actually going to want to inquire or buy something or book a call? So really good copywriting is going to be conversion driven, and that means that we're getting them to take a specific action when they're landing there. So if I'm writing a sales page, for example, say for some kind of offer, I'm really wanting them to take action on that page. So, something I'll hear from clients a lot, sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm a pretty good writer, but I don't know how to write copy that sells. And I think that's very key. And that's what a website copywriter and a copywriter more generally is really, really good at, is figuring out who are your people, what are they saying, what is your vision for your business, and then how can we convey that in a way that's going to make people like actually want to work with you. Like if your site is not working for you, it's probably because the copy on your website.
Sure. And that, I think, proves a really good point, too, of like, yeah, you get people to your page, but what do you want to do with that? And I think copy is kind of that key that a lot of people are missing. Like, you might have the most beautiful photos, but if they don't know where to click or what to do or what, like, how to inquire or any of that stuff, like, you really got to guide them through that process. So I think it's really awesome that you, like, focus on not just, like, what is copy, but what does it mean to, like, convert? And that's what we're talking about here today, which is so exciting. So do you mind talking through a little bit about what that transformation can look like for someone who goes from just having words on a website to actually focusing on having copy that converts? Like, what does that actually look like? What can that do for someone's business?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this because I've been getting so many good responses from my clients. And I'll give you this example. So a wedding photographer client of mine, I worked with her last year. We did that process where we interviewed her clients and we worked on her messaging and wrote her website copywriting. And it's so cool because she came back, and so she like didn't rebrand, like didn't work with the designer, like she just updated her site with the copy, and she got like 24 inquiries in the month that she launched her copy. Like it was so immediate. And honestly, it's not always that immediate. Sometimes it does take some time. It might take a few months, and then you're like, wow, I'm really seeing an uptick. I'm really seeing more ideal clients. I'm seeing more people fill out my form. Like I'm noticing some things. But that was such a cool example. And I checked in with her the other day. I was like, how's it going? Is it still going well? And, she actually got more inquiries in the last half of the year after her website launched than she did in the first half of the year. And she's like fully booked for this year. So especially, if you're like a wedding photographer and you're going, why am I not booking out, further in advance, it really truly could be the words on your site could be holding you back, because you might be getting the traffic, but you might not be able to get that conversion, which is like getting them to fill out the form. And so, I've been seeing that more and more in my clients lately, is really seeing them being able to literally see those conversions. And by conversions, I mean more people are filling out the form. Another of my clients, she was saying she's raised her prices so much because she was getting really booked out. And, her couples spend for their weddings, like their overall budget, because she's a wedding stationer. She was like, wow, like their actual, like my ideal clients' overall budget for their weddings has like increased. And thus like my pricing has increased. And it's like you just start reaching a new level. And I work with a lot of people that are going, I want to work with higher ticket clients, or like I want to break into a luxury market. And they've done some of those other pieces. They've really elevated their photos. They've really elevated their craft. And now they're wanting a website to like reflect the experience that they already have,
Yeah. No, and I think that's really awesome because you want to be able to attract those clients and you really want to like be able to capture them. And I think that's a really cool story of like what you shared of people like it's not necessarily that they didn't have the traffic, it's just they weren't converting. And I think that's really cool that they were able to see such a difference in like they were already getting traffic but it wasn't converting, and then all of a sudden they work with you and now like the power of what good copy does, like that's truly what this is about. So that's incredible to hear and I love that. So like as you've worked with people and looked at their copy on their website, like what are some of the common mistakes you see people make, specifically photographers, when it comes to their copy?
I would definitely say one of the big ones is like sounding the same as though they're photographers. Like I love it when photographers hire me and we work together and they're like, oh my gosh, like I really don't want to say anymore like chasing the light or I love, or, I don't want to say any of these things that everyone else is saying. And, sometimes people will be like, I don't know what else to say though. And I think sometimes that can happen is like people just don't know what else to say. And so that's why it's really important to dig into like, what is your business about? What do clients love about working with you, so that you can sound different? And you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel to sound different either. Like you do not have to be like the only person in the world doing this one thing. And that's okay, because there are like different parts and pieces of your business that are going to resonate with people. But definitely like trying to go past like what's being said or what's cliche or what's expected is like a really big thing. And that's something I love to focus on as a copywriter, is making sure, even if I work with a lot of designers or photographers or wedding planners, every single one of their sites sounds super different because they're different and their clients are different, and everyone's different and everyone has an opportunity to stand out. And then also another thing is like having kind of boring headlines. Like So I do SEO keyword research as part of my process. That's another thing too, is really making sure that you have the right SEO keywords so you can start seeing a little bit more traffic from Google, because that is something like a lot of wedding pros, they work on referrals or they're getting found through Instagram. But if you start your SEO efforts strong and you can kind of build that, I mean, blogging is a really great way to do that. You can start getting found more through Google and kind of diversify where your leads are coming from. And so I love baking those in. Like we do need to bake in that SEO keyword research. We might have to be like, so-and-so wedding photographer or destination wedding photographer or something like that. But we don't want that to be like the main like first thing that we say, because you might have that in huge text, but it's taking up valuable real estate. And use that space to say something about your business that is really going to resonate with people. Like grab their attention, because, like people, I always hate it when people are like, people don't read anymore. Like people totally read, but you can't make it boring. It really needs to grab attention. And, if it connects with people, like people will read it.
Totally. And I think it's important to keep in mind who's visiting the website, because we've had clients who like can be super analytical and they'll read every single page of your website and your contract and every little detail. And it's a big decision. It's a big investment. People like to do their research. And I think the assumption that people don't read or that it doesn't matter is a huge disservice to the business. And so I love that you just like touched on that. And the importance of also knowing like your keywords, all the things, like that's so good. And if anyone's listening and you're not sure how to do keyword research or any of that, I actually do have like an episode we did a couple weeks ago about like keyword research and SEO and ranking on Google. So take a look at that. There's some really good nuggets in there. But back to this. So like for people who are kind of listening and they're wondering, okay, I feel like I'm making these mistakes and like I don't really know what to do, what would you say are your top 3 to 5 tips for people to start writing copy that converts for their website?
Yeah, I would say like the first thing is to do is like, so as a copywriter, like I never start with a blank page. So anyone who's like going, being like, I don't know what to say, like if you're sitting in front of a blank page, like it is not just you, like that's everyone. That is so universal. So try to have some material in front of you to start with. I would say firstly, a really good place to look if you're like, I don't know what makes me different. Like I don't know. Go to your testimonials and see what people are saying about you. Even if you don't have a lot of them. I mean, some photographers are going to be like, oh my gosh, I have like 100 of them on Google or Wedding Wire or something like that. But if you don't, I mean, even if you have 5 or 6 or 10 or however many you have, go and look at those and see what people are saying. Try to see if you can find words or phrases, or just try to identify what people are saying, because those are things you can absolutely use. Sometimes people will say things that are so good that you're like, wow, I can really highlight this on my homepage or my services page. Or like if like 3 or 4 people say the same thing, or they say something specific about your process, that points to, okay, my ideal client really cares about this. This is something people are noticing. This is something I should choose to highlight. So that can give you some ideas on what to say, what to highlight, what do people care about, what is important to them. So that is really, really huge. And that can help you a lot, so that you're not feeling like you have to come up with it all yourself, because you absolutely don't. There is some really great ways. And then also like write everything from the perspective that like you want to make it easy for people to inquire with you. Like something I see a lot, and I get it, sometimes if you're getting like a lot of inquiries, you might want to vet people, so you might want to have a longer form. Like if you're getting like dozens of inquiries per day or something, I don't know, then maybe you do want to vet people, and you might actually want to have a longer form to repel people. However, like if your inquiries are slower or down or something, like, or you even just like want the data and you want to see what that conversion is and see who's filling out your form, like I recommend have a shorter form. Like don't ask them a million questions initially. Something you can ask them later. Like try to just have a shorter form. Like the longer form you have, like conversions drop like exponentially the longer your forms are. So keep those short, and make sure to like think about where you want to send people. Primarily for photographers, that is going to be your contact page. We want to think about how can we drive them there. However, something we want to make sure we do, we also do want them to read your services or info or experience page. Like we don't want to just have it like we land on the homepage and it's like, boom, contact me, because it's too soon. They haven't read your site. They don't know you. There's not enough buy-in yet to really know like who the heck you are and why should we buy from you. So what I will often do is like send them to that services or experience page first. Like we want them to read that. We want them to see that, because you don't want people just being like, boom, homepage, inquire, because they're not going to know anything about you. They haven't seen your pricing. They haven't seen your experience. They have no idea what you offer. So we want them to go to your services page first, read that, see that, check that out. Even if you're not listing pricing on your site, if you're someone that's like, no, I really want to have that post inquiry, that's totally fine. But we do want them to see what your experience is first. So make sure like you are conveying that and sharing that. And then we can send them to the contact form. We don't want a crazy long form, so try to keep it short and sweet. And I'm a fan of transparent pricing or starting prices. I think that's really, really great. And then also you're not getting inquiries from people that are like completely out of budget. You know, they're wanting something that's like half the price of your primary package or something. So it can be nice to like make sure you're getting inquiries from people that are serious. But yeah, we want to make it easy for people to contact you. We want to highlight those testimonials. Like, what do people like about working with you? And yeah, something else too, don't be afraid of copy. And what I mean by this, it's like what I was saying earlier, when people are like, people don't read anymore, writing is pointless, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it is important. Like it works. Don't just let your photos speak for themselves. Like photos might be a first impression, but like, please have some copy on your site. Don't have 3 words on your site and just be like, hi, contact me. Like give them more, because they want to know. They want to know, like give them that information. And then they're going to be like more vetted leads. They're going to be more excited by you.
Totally. And I think that's a really important thing. And I kind of like how you described it. Like you kind of get to decide, do you want more or less? And there's kind of things you can do to kind of control that and make sure you're getting the right people in. Or if you got nobody in, maybe you're repelling too many people by like having too long of a form. And so I think that goes to show that copy and like what you're actually putting in your website strategically can make a huge difference. And so pay attention to that and like maybe keep an eye on just like, am I getting enough inquiries? How long is my form? And like, look at like, where are you leading people? Are they actually reading your page? And you can actually track this on, I think it's like Google Search Console or Google Analytics. And you can actually like put things on your page where you can actually track and see like, what is the journey that people are taking on your website? Make sure you're guiding them through that and make sure that they're actually seeing the necessary pages. So like, as people are like writing the copy and like really trying to figure out, okay, how do I make this convert? What would you say are the most important things for people to focus on when writing copy?
Well, firstly, like try to write and then edit. You can't edit something that isn't written. Like you literally need some text on the page. So please write first. Don't try to be like, oh no, I would never say that. That's so embarrassing. No, like just write it first. And then if you look at it and go, oh no, we can cut this. That's repetitive. No, like pass. Like we can do that. Like that's normal and expected. I'll also say too, don't be afraid to sell. I mean, I think we, as creatives can be like reluctant to sell. Like we don't want to seem pushy. We don't want to seem rude. We don't want to seem like a car salesman, but it's like, no, like people are going to your site, especially it's like, they're like actively like on the search. They're like trying to figure out like who is going to photograph my wedding. And we need to have you like actually sell like why work with you, what is your experience, like sell that. Don't be afraid to sell that. Like it's not being obnoxious, it's not being rude or pushy. Like this is your website, like this is your pitch, this is your chance to tell people why you. And it's people that just kind of have like a services menu, and they're just like, hey, this is my pricing, inquire. And it's like, okay, but why? Give me a little bit more to work with. Like go back to what is your process? How do you work with clients? What are some touch points? Go back to your testimonials. What do people love about working with you? How can we highlight those things? What are questions people have? Like if you're on your discovery calls, like is there anywhere that people are getting confused and they're like, oh, I have questions about this, this, and this, because maybe we could have a frequently asked questions, or we could clarify that somewhere. So you can use this as an opportunity to answer questions too, and maybe hopefully either like see those questions less, or you have a really good canned response to use on your calls. Like you can use that, in your other materials too.
Totally. And I think just guiding them and making sure that you can like build that trust too by having the answers. Because the less information you have, the more confused someone's going to be, and the more questions they will have. And then if you're spending that time like after they've inquired, like let's say they do fill it out, but they still have all these questions. If you're spending that time answering questions that could have been answered before they did that, then you're spending less time actually selling them on the value, building that connection, which I believe like those calls should really be establishing that personal connection, so that they actually feel a personal connection to you and your work and what you value and all of that. Like you're really like genuinely trying to like create that, and it's really hard when they just got all these like logistical questions. So I love that. I think that's a great way of just how your copy can like serve you really well and strategically, and also just like be more efficient with your time and help you really focus on the things that matter, when actually like you can have copy that converts to get them to inquire, but then it's your job to convert them from that to actually booking you. And that's like a whole other thing. But I think that's so great of just like making that spot or that part of the process even easier. So I guess when people are looking at writing copy, a big thing that people can maybe feel is like a little bit overwhelmed of like, where do I start? What do I do? So like, do you have any like prep work or tips you have for getting started on writing your copy for your website?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like I was saying, like, don't sit down with a blank page, because you're just going to be like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. And, again, it's not your fault. It's not you. Even professional copywriters don't sit down with a blank page. So, you've got your, I was talking about like, you've got your testimonials and you've got some of these different things. Something I will do, I literally take out, like, I have one of my notepads here. Like, I will take out pen and paper, and sometimes I'll write down like words from their testimonials, or, if I do interviews, I'll write down like things from their interviews. I'll like word dump different things. Sometimes I'll look at their photos and be like, ooh, like what words is this making me feel? And so I will write out different words and phrases and things like before I start writing out headlines. And I'll kind of play with that a little bit. So going to pen and paper, I find to be very helpful. So I will do that. And then doing a brain dump, I think, can be really great, because then you can get a little bit like of a download of what's in your mind and what are you kind of thinking about? And then you can kind of iterate and play around with different phrasings of things. Like when I write taglines, I'll play around with different like focuses for the business. Like I might write a tagline that's like focused on their, photography style. So I might be thinking of some words and phrases and be like, okay, how can we put that into a tagline? Or I might write a tagline around the experience. So I'm thinking about like, what would really encompass the experience. So if we have a few words and phrases around that, I could play around and write a few taglines around the experience, write a few taglines around the like the photography look and feel, or like we can find something, if there's something people really love about your experience, we can write taglines around that. So we can, brain dump a little bit, kind of see what material we have, and then you can kind of build out from there. So I think that's a really great way to like get into writing it without being like, oh my God, how does it have to be structured? What do I do? What do I say? Like it can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. And I think it's just putting in the right prep work.
And I really like what you said about the prep stuff, because what I like that you didn't say is go look at other people's websites, because that's what people see. And I think that's probably like one of the biggest things. And that's why it can feel like such a copy and paste industry where everyone's got authentic and candid and this and that. And I think I love how you just said, like, get a piece of paper out, do a brain dump, figure out like what's actually there. And then also, if you're going to look at anything externally, like look at what you're getting in terms of like, what are people saying about your business? Like, what are other people saying about you specifically? And that's just so beautiful, because I think that's truly what is going to help you stand out from the competition and actually like not look like another copy and paste person in the industry. We don't need any more of that. They've already got enough templates out there. We don't need you to look the same. And so I love that. And I think that's a really great start. And then I think once you get that on there, maybe then you could maybe look and see if like you're missing anything. But I love how your starting point is just like looking within. What are people already saying about you and your brand, and like hone in on your strengths. Like that is seriously so good. And so like we were talking a lot about like doing it yourself, and just kind of like prepping and how to do that and what that looks like. I guess when it comes to copywriting, I know there's a couple different options out there. People can either write it themselves or hire someone. Do you mind talking a little bit about like what that process might look like and kind of like the pros and cons of either option?
You can work with a copywriter. You can write it yourself. I'm actually working right now on, a set of like templates and workshops and, some different ways that people can DIY. So hopefully later this year, I'm going to have more of those. But as far as like the pros of hiring it out. So if you're going, oh, maybe I would like to hire a copywriter, here are a few pros. It's really great because you get help actually writing it. And I think that stops people a lot, is the actual like writing it on paper. Like it seems like it should be easy, but it's really not. And even professional writers, in all different, industries or, styles of writing, struggle at some point. I mean, writing is like a lifelong craft. It's something that like we study for like years and years and years. Like there is a lot that goes into it. So if you are struggling with writing, like it's not you, it's not something to feel bad about. Like writing is a craft, and it's something that you study for years. And, it's also really great if you hire a writer, especially someone with like a proven track record and portfolio, like, it's going to be good. You can trust that this person knows like what the heck they're doing, what should be on your site, like how are all of these different pieces like strategy and SEO and conversion and your vision and your ideas, and what do your clients love working with you? Like there's so many different pieces. Like it's really not just like writing the words on the page. You can know all of those things are going to get into your copy, and you don't have to be the one going, well, I have to figure this out. You can kind of convey that vision and have someone else deliver that to you and bring the how to you. And that's something that I really love supporting my clients with. Sometimes it's nice too to have that outside perspective. Like we don't know what we don't know, and we get to in our heads as business owners. Sometimes we're just like, I don't know what makes me different, but like I might talk to you for like a couple of minutes and I could just tell you what it is and go, oh, well, it's so obvious to me. And then you can go off and use that in your marketing. And, it might be something like you don't have to get so in your head about. You can have someone help you figure this out. So, there's a lot of reasons in that regard. It's also really great too, because, a lot of us copywriters like, work with designers and, collaborate with people that work in the design industry. So we're very familiar with like those processes and how that works and how do you work with a web designer and all of that good stuff. So that it's going to be good. I would say if there's any cons that you're like, oh, like maybe like, is this going to work for me? I would say sometimes you need to be patient with the timeline. Like people might not be like immediately available. You might need to wait a little bit to get some time on their calendar, and, just be reasonable with expectations. Expect to provide feedback to your copywriter. Working with a copywriter is not usually just going to be like, oh, here's your copy done. Like, I know, a lot of us, and in my process, I like to be collaborative with clients. Like I will present you something. I will go, I want your feedback. I want to know what you think. I want to revise this accordingly. I don't just hand you something and be like, okay, bye-bye, see you later. So that is something you do need to be prepared to give feedback. And that's why if you're the kind of person that's like, no, I want to be the one writing it, and I want to have like 100% control over the end product, maybe it is worth it to write it yourself, because you can learn to write your own copy. It's a really good skill to have as a business owner. And like I was saying, you have more control over the end product. So you can go, no, I want it to be this way, and you can make it that way. And just having the autonomy is really great. But yeah, I would say cons though, in terms of writing it yourself, it is figuring it out on your own. But the nice thing is there are a lot of like good, templates, courses, programs, audits. Like there's a lot of ways that you can work with copywriters, even if you're not engaging us for a full project. There are other ways that you can work with copywriters. So, there could be a happy medium there. You could write your copy and then get a little bit of support. So I think that there are ways that work with your personality, budget, style. It doesn't have to be either or. So I think that's nice.
Totally. And I think for a lot of people who like struggle with the writing piece, to just have someone like who knows what you need. They can do a deep dive into your brand, your ideal client, really figure out like not only the SEO portion, but also the conversion portion. Like there's just so much there that like the expertise is invaluable, right? And I think that there's so much that can be said about that. Like I know for us, like when we did our first website, like we did it all ourselves. In fact, a lot of it still is today. I do have a background in journalism and writing. And I do really enjoy it, but like part of me is wondering like maybe we should take a look at my website after this and like what am I missing? Because you never know what you're missing, and having that expertise on your website, I'm actually able to like look at it and see what's going on. How could you do this better? Like, I think opening that up, that does take a little bit of vulnerability, but when you let people into your business and you let them help you in a way where like, I think we're so used to controlling every single thing, but just like letting go of that and letting the experts do their job. I mean, it's going to do so much. And just hearing that story earlier about someone who, worked with you and they were able to like significantly increase their leads, and like, that is massive, and that just shows the power of it. And so if you're trying to do it yourself and you're not quite getting the results you want, like I think it is good to like talk with someone and figure out, okay, what am I missing? What can I do better? So thanks so much for just like highlighting that and talking through the pros and cons. I think there's so much there, and everyone's so different, right? Like everyone needs good copy, and how you get there is going to look very different. And so this is just such an important topic to be aware of and look into. And so one big thing I want to just kind of ask you though, in terms of like, should you hire it out? Should you do it yourself? Is like, what are your thoughts on AI? Because it's becoming kind of a big thing these days, and people are going to ChatGPT and just typing in their questions, getting things answered, trying to have it right for them. Have you seen success with this? Do you have any hesitations or like connotations that go with this? Like what are your thoughts on AI in terms of copywriting in that world?
I have so many thoughts. First of all, I like using AI for things like call transcripts and recordings. Editing out ums can be really great. I know Loom, the video software, that I use it a lot to send like videos to my clients, like screen sharing and stuff. They have some really cool AI features that, I'm liking, some of the video editing stuff. Like there are some really cool ways to use AI. So it's not like I'm not using AI in my business at all. However, obviously I'm biased as a copywriter. I don't think a robot can replace what I can do. And I've gone and I've tried these tools. Like I've tried ChatGPT. I've tried like 2 or 3 others. And to me, I was just like, these are really lackluster results. It's, how we were talking about earlier about kind of like saying the same things as a photographer, like saying really overused things. I find that ChatGPT, like if you give it prompts, it's just giving you like very overused wording and phrasing and just things that like anybody could say. And I think too, sometimes with AI, there's no guarantee that it's not spitting out the same exact copy to like 15 other people that are on there at the same time, or like 100 or 1,000. And I've heard too, I don't know too much about the legality of it, so I'm not the person to ask, but I think that, I've heard that you can't like trademark things that you like, that are generated from AI, you can't trademark it. So say it like generates a tagline or something, you couldn't go and trademark that because that's not technically owned by you. So some of those legal things are definitely implications to consider.
And at the end of the day, it is a robot, right? And so it's going to sound robotic. I know, like I've had it try to write copy and I'm like, this is horrible. And you end up changing the whole thing. It's not a bad idea to get something on the paper to edit, maybe, but it'll use words like embark. Like who says that? I do not say the word embark. And it always somehow throws that word in there. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like me. Yeah. So you want your website, you want your copy, you want everything to sound like you, and you can't do that without you. You can't do that without another pair of eyes on that. And like, sure, I'm sure technology gets better. I know there's a lot of things you can do with prompting, but we live in a world where like we are moving in the direction of using more and more AI. And I think it's important to learn how to adapt and like figure out how to use it, but also not lose the human touch of it, because we're all craving authenticity. And when we're just replacing that, like with robots and with AI, and it doesn't even sound like us anymore, I think the end clients are going to see that. And like, you want to stand out, you want to sound like you, and you want to actually build that authentic connection. And you just want to be really careful when you're using AI to make sure that you're not just like letting that be the end product, because what it spits out initially is probably not going to sound like you. So it's good to just kind of use that in balance. So I thought that was really good. I really liked a lot of your thoughts on that, and I think it's very relevant to just today's world. So thank you just so much for like sharing all about copywriting today and sharing all about your thoughts from like where to start, the importance of it, and like mistakes to avoid, and really tips and tricks. Like you really packed in so much there today, Kayla. So thank you so much. Are there any concluding thoughts you'd love to leave our listeners with today? Is there anything you'd like to share with them?
I'm just like so happy I got to be here. I loved this conversation too. Yeah, I think that there's like a lot of good stuff in here. If you are DIYing, if you're considering hiring someone, like wherever you are in business, I think that copywriting can serve you. It's relevant to you, and you can find what solution is going to meet you where you are. It doesn't have to be like, oh, just hire a copywriter, because sometimes that just isn't the right thing for your business at the moment, and that's totally fine. And I think you just have to find the solution that works best for your business. And at the end of the day, you just have to do what's right for you. So yeah, I loved this conversation.
It was so good. Thank you so much. And for anyone who wants to learn more about Kayla, I'm going to link her website and Instagram in the show notes. So feel free to connect with her there. And Kayla, thank you so much for being on the show. Really, really, really value you and your time. And just thanks for everything you shared today. And for those of you listening, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.